Hey guys, Jim here, live from Hinesburg, Georgia. Just got done playing Bloom and Rage tape number 2 and wanted to give some thoughts on it. There will be some spoilers in this video, but I don't think it's anything you guys couldn't have assumed. If you're watching this, I'm going to assume you're a fan of the game and you want to hear other people's opinions on it. And that's what this review is going to be. I will pause to when I get to the spoiler stuff towards the end because I think it's important to explain in my review personally. So rest assured, if you're just curious my thoughts on the game, I won't give anything away until a certain point, all right? But what I wanted to say was that from a technical standpoint, this game struggled. It took me about 6 hours to beat. I had a significant number of weird artifacts, so much so that I thought it was actually part of the game, basically trying to flash like ghosts or like alternate imagery to me. It wasn't that. It was literally just the game didn't know what to do sometimes. There's a scene later on in the game where Kat is in her room trying to show you signs to help you navigate through a puzzle area. And it was so glitched and broken. She was talking over herself. She was holding signs. She was T-posing. She was phasing out of reality. It was very, very, very jarring. There was actually a couple other times as well where characters would clip through each other or talk over each other, or sometimes one character would be saying two completely different voices, like two different voice dialogues simultaneously, and the model didn't know like which mouth to do to which voice. So it looked like something out of like a horror movie where the character was snapping around violently, and it did kind of break the experience a little bit. Reminds me a lot of Telltale games, and one of the reasons why I gave up on a lot of those games, particularly the Batman game, was just how broken it was. Now, there were no hard crashes or anything like that, which was good, but from a polish standpoint, this game was very, very poor. The only thing I could think is I did not play this on my PlayStation Pro. I just played it on my regular PlayStation. And I'm wondering if that may have had something to do with it, because when I played it on the Pro, it was significantly better. But here on the regular PlayStation, it was rough. And just understand that there's a lot of emotional things that happen in this game. And there's a lot of, sappy music and teenage girls crying. And, it's trying to connect with you on a human level. And it fails often with the sheer amount of technical glitches that at least I experienced. Outside of that, it was playable. I did get through the story. I will admit I did tear up quite a few times. I will say, though, before I get into the spoiler territory, that you got to keep in mind the perspective of this game is from a teenage girl. It's teenage girls dealing with teenage girl problems. And as a 43-year-old man who was once a teenager, not a teenage girl, but once was a teenager, I can respect some of the drama. I remember, doing stupid things when I was a kid. I remember thinking my world was going to end when girls broke up with me, or I didn't get my way, or something sold out, or I wasn't able to see a show I wanted to see, whatever it was. But, at that time, it's, you're growing into yourself, literally and figuratively, and emotions and drama is high. So being older and very disconnected from that world now, I can remember it, but I don't relate to it, because I would look at a lot of the problems that I saw in this game and a lot of the things that were going on, and I'm like, well, if you just did it this way, if you handled this maturely, if you just sat and talked to the other person, you could avoid a lot of this. So it kind of does break a little of that mold. However, I will say that it did resonate a lot with me, and there's a lot of stuff in this game, those wonder years, so to speak, where we're all trying to figure out who we want to be. This game has a touch of that, a touch of the supernatural, and I think it ultimately worked, and it resonated with me. Like I said, here I am sitting in a hotel room tearing up over a game about teenage girls. So it did tug at my heartstrings, and Dontnod, I think, continues to be the best at making these emotionally charged games that hit you in a certain way. With that, I'm going to jump over to the spoiler territory. So if you don't know anything else, Recommend you stop watching here. Come back at the end when you're done. I think you should check out this game. All right, so for everybody else who's sticking around, you've obviously beat the end or you don't care and you want to know my thoughts on it. I will say that the ending to me made the most sense for my particular choices. So in my playthrough, Nora and I connected very, very quickly. I romanced her every possible chance I could. I thought that her and I connected the most. It seemed like we had the most in common of kind of really, really outcast people. Kat seemed more misunderstood than an outcast, and Autumn to me felt very normal, who was just hanging out with friends, just kind of going for the ride. It didn't surprise me at the end of the game when Autumn got up and left. She did not want to know what was in the box. Even with the present day Autumn, me talking to her, it just didn't feel like her heart was in it. Now, maybe your playthrough will be different than mine, but she just didn't seem like somebody I was able to connect to. Despite talking to her, despite trying to reach out to her, she just seemed like a third wheel between me and Nora throughout the whole game. Where I really lost respect for her, and again, every playthrough is different, but in my playthrough, she actually notified Corey that we were going to do something. So that's why Corey was kind of on edge. That betrayal, I think at one point I had the dialogue option of saying, Autumn, why? And it showed a little heartbreak because it was something she didn't like. And that's when I lost all respect for her. She just never seemed like she was in on the group. It seemed like she was around the group when it benefited her, but her heart wasn't in it, not the way that Kat, Nora, and Swan were. And when she left, I didn't feel bad. But I think every group of friends has that person who kind of goes along for the ride, but when rubber meets the road, they are not around and they want to leave. And I don't feel comfortable about this. And they kind of take their ball and go home. So I thought it was phenomenal writing. I have nothing against Autumn. It's not like I hate her or anything. It was phenomenal writing, and I did resonate with that relationship, although I did not really care for it. In terms of Nora, Nora stayed with me to the end. Nora took me back to the garage. We played a song together. I think we smoked. I don't remember. I was kind of like cleaning up the room, getting ready for bed, watching the cutscene because it was like a 5-minute song. But Nora and I definitely seemed like good battle buddies that did reunite, and I was grateful for that. It was ambiguous as to whether she's going to go back to her old life or we're going to somehow remain in touch, although the ending might totally change that anyway, assuming that Swan is still around. I'm curious to see if we would like reunite at some point, or this was just kind of like a one-night special thing where we met up, united, and left. In terms of Gus and Pam, I did not deal with them much at the bar. I found them to be annoying. I did think it was kind of cool when I noticed that Pam was around at the beginning of the second game, sitting outside the bar talking. Surprisingly, it seemed like you and her had a very good relationship. And the fact that she kind of acted like she didn't know you was weird. Maybe there was more to that I didn't understand, but her obviously seeing the concert and being a big fan of yours and appreciating what you did, you finding the book for it, seemed like those were important moments in her life. So for you to have a 10 or 15 minute discussion with her and Gus at the bar and her not to remember you seemed odd to me. So again, I don't know if it's because I didn't invest enough time in that relationship, but I really didn't care about them. They were just kind of a foil in the background to kind of break up the heavier parts of the story where you had to go get a drink or charge your cell phone or whatever. So I didn't really care about them. In terms of Kat, obviously the story was about her. As I said earlier in the beginning part of this video, you know, finding out you're dying of cancer is rough, right? Of course. I mean, it was sad. It changed her world forever. I didn't really get the impression that she lived a sheltered life until the very, very, very end of the game. And I would say if there's any one thing that the writers could have done better, it was conveyed just how sheltered she was and why that summer meant so much to her is because she actually got to go live her life. The fact that she was always at that at the Fawn's Dawn or Fawn's Rest, whatever you called it, right? The fact that she was always there and her parents didn't seem to mind kind of contradicts her saying that she lived a sheltered life. I wasn't really clear with the writing on that, but if we're going to take away from this that she was basically locked inside a cage essentially because her parents were so afraid of her failing immune system and how weak she was, and the fact that she got to go out and be with her friends and actually live a normal life, makes much more sense in the scope of the game. And that's the narrative I'm going to go with, even though the game didn't actually really like readily spell that out. I was best friends with her, but just in a purely friendship way. At the end of the game, in my particular playthrough, Corey pulls her into the abyss. I had an opportunity to help her fight. I chose not to, but not because I didn't appreciate her or because I stabbed Corey, right? I had the option. If I could have killed Corey, I would have done it. I think that guy was a punk. But I didn't do that because I thought it was something she needed to do on her own, because she clearly had a lot of animosity with Corey. He had clearly kind of turned his sister against her, and she really seemed agitated about that. And I thought that a part of me said, well, let me step in as a friend and let's take this evil down together. But then I thought about it like, she needed to do it on her own. So the fact that she gets yoinked in, I was like, well, I didn't quite see that panning out the way that I had hoped. I'm curious on the other endings, if she doesn't get pulled in, what kind of relationship she would have, although it is kind of assumed that she's dead. But the game does a bad job of that too, even with the writing, because they go, oh, the cancer was terminal. It's like, no, yes, the cancer was terminal, but we all saw her get sucked into a black hole and die, or a pink hole and die, right? So like, it was a little odd to me that the game wrote that in there. I know they were trying to be ambiguous because at that point we didn't know what happened, but it was kind of a weird line that stuck out to me. Her being alive in some sort of weird supernatural state at the end does resonate, in the sense that like she was clearly more than what she let on to be. We don't know if she was like an angel. I draw a lot of similarities to Owen Meany from the book A Prayer for Owen Meany, where it's kind of like ambiguous, is like, is this kid a servant of God? Like down here is like an angel, like a guardian, a protector of sorts who has some divine or supernatural intervention. Kat really seemed to know a lot more than anyone else at any given time. And even at the end of the game, as she was in her final moments, she didn't seem like she wasn't in control of the situation. I know the game kind of leads you to believe that the abyss maybe possessed her, and even in the post-credit scenes, the game says something to the effect of like, you let the abyss possess Kat. I don't know if I felt that way. I don't know if the abyss was a reason why Kat did what she did, or if she was part of it, or was a vessel of hers, but I never felt like Kat was not in control, and I disagreed with that line. At least in my playthrough, to me, Kat seemed very, very aware and very conscious of some of the decisions she was making, and she really seemed to be in control. And then, of course, there's Swan, the player character. I appreciated them holding the reveal of showing her off until the very end. I assume she was like hideously disfigured. She's just the normal. She's had a big tattoo on her arm, which we kind of saw a little bit of in clips earlier. She was somebody who never really seemed to fit in, and she seemed very hung up on, obviously, because you're looking at it from her perspective and playing with her throughout the game, but she's the only one that genuinely wanted to know what was going on. And when the mystery is revealed and that they were kind of brainwashed and kind of like re-get their memories back, she seemed to take it much more personally than others. She seemed the most emotionally charged character of the group. She seemed the most sympathetic of the group. And I think that's why I related with her the most, because I am somebody who definitely wears their heart on their sleeve. So not having Swan in the game as somebody who I could like relate to, as somebody who's emotional, helped me personally. At the end, I could see her not caring about life, in a sense, not that she was suicidal, but knowing that if she went back to the abyss and jumped in, that she was going to transform everything forever and go on this grand adventure. It seemed like she didn't have much to leave behind. She had her cat, she had her book, she had her, photography collection, but she didn't seem to have that personal connection. It seemed like the other girls had moved on and had built their lives for themselves. And it seemed like Swan was I think she was 25 years later. So she's like a 40-year-old trapped in like a 15-year-old's body, right? She just didn't seem like she had gotten over it. And that summer resonated with her so much so that like, it's all she cared about. It's all she thought about. It was her North Star and everything. And that resonates with me too, as somebody who has gone through a lot of friendships and has gone through a lot of emotional things. There are times I feel like I'm fighting a one-sided war. And I feel like Swan was fighting a one-sided war. She was the only one that really seemed to care about that whole story more than anyone else. I mean, like I said, my playthrough, Autumn gets up and walks out the door. Nora was basically begging to stay with me. And while she did, Swan definitely seemed like the one who cared. And at the end of the game, at the Abyss, when it was all said and done, who's there by themselves? Well, in my game, it was Swan. And she was like, I need to go write this. I'm not done with this. This part of my life is too important to give up. And even looking through the box at the end, all the little tchotchkes that Kat had saved for her, she seemed much more sentimental and warm. And that might just be a testament to the voice actress or the writing, or that was what they wanted you to think, or that was my playthrough, but that was my resonant, that's what resonated with me. So really enjoyed this game. Like I said, the decision-making matched for what I felt. I didn't feel like any of the the ending was cheap or unwarranted. Everything felt good to me. And like when Autumn got up and walked out, I was like, good, screw you, because I think you suck. And when Nora stayed behind, I was like, okay, good. Like, you realize that you mean something to me. And obviously Swan taking that sacrifice at the end for her friend Kat. I love the writing in this game, and I would love to go back and watch through some of the other alternate endings and videos. They won't be real to me. Obviously, the ending I just gave you is mine. A game like this, I don't think warrants a replay, because I feel like I almost be cheating on myself. Like, I made the decisions I made. I play these decision-based games exactly one time. I don't want to play them again. I don't want to try to hunt trophies or achievements and get characters to like me that didn't like me, because it doesn't feel authentic to my experience. But that's just me. So that'll wrap up this video. Thoughts, spoiler, whatever you want to call it, on Bloom and Rage, tape number 2. I love this game. I am so grateful that Dontnod has continued to perfect the art of storytelling, this time transforming me into a 15-year-old girl, letting me feel some of those emotions I felt in high school and kind of those wonder years, and adding in a touch of supernatural that actually made the stakes significantly higher than anything else I had thought possible in a video game. That'll wrap up today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side. Bye-bye.